there! I just have to tell you about this book we've been using to teach history in our homeschool. It's called Our Island Story, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it today. I'm Jenny with Kids Learning for Life. The full title of this book is Our Island Story, A History of England for Boys and Girls, and it is also referred to as An Island Story. I find out about Our Island Story from the Ambleside Online curriculum, which is a free online Charlotte Mason curriculum, and I'll be sure to link to my video review of Ambleside Online below. Now, you may have heard from the title, it is a history of England for boys and girls. This is also a history of England for anyone, but you may be wondering, why start with British history? There are probably several good answers to this, one of which being Charlotte Mason herself was British and was educating children in England. But another reason is that British history ties into the history of many other countries. The British Empire at one point was massive, so if you live in one of these countries that was under British rule, then British history is your history. So I'm from the United States, so obviously this is the case for us, that British history ties directly into US history. And the next history book that we're going to be doing after Our Island Story is called This Country of Ours, and it's actually by the same author, which is great. H.E. Marshall, who is the author of all these books, also wrote a book called Our Empire Story, which covers even more of the countries that were under the British Empire. So this has completely led me under this massive rabbit hole, and I can't be the only one who falls down these book rabbit holes, so let me know if you're one of these people in the comments below. Anyway, Our Island Story is the cornerstone of our history lessons in my homeschool, even though it's not even technically a curriculum. It begins with the mythology of how the island of Britain came to be, which is kind of fun. And it starts with Caesar's multiple attempts to conquer it, and then moves forward in history chronologically. I like this book for several reasons, and I can't stop recommending it to people. But one of those reasons is that the chapters in Our Island Story are pretty short, and they're really accessible, easy to understand for kids. This book is also so well written. It is so engaging. It really gets you into the story of all these events in history that you would never think you could possibly connect to. Now, there are a few things that you might want to keep in mind when considering using Our Island Story in your homeschool. This book is written from a British perspective, so it's not neutral. It's very much so on the British side, so if you're not wanting something so one-sided, you might want to consider that. This book also comes from a Christian perspective, so it's not necessarily the best option if you want a purely secular homeschool. Another logistical thing to keep in mind is that this book is old, and it's in the free domain, and a lot of copies are really ugly or misprinted. Even my copy here isn't really the most beautiful copy. If I were to suggest a really nice, beautiful copy, I would suggest the one printed by Living Book Press, which I will link to below. It's really, really nice, has pictures, it has good margins, it's just a nice size, and it's just well formatted. There are a lot of really random looking copies like this available online, so that's something to think about as well. The way we use Our Island Story in our homeschool is really simple, and that's kind of why I love it. I mean, sometimes it's nice not to have a full history curriculum when you just want to do a history reading with your kids. When we have some spare time, usually in the afternoons, we will sit down and read a chapter or two at a time. We sometimes do this with me reading aloud, or we listen to it in audio form. There's a really good version of Our Island Story available for free on the LibriVox app and is voiced by Kara Schallenberg. This is great if you as a mom are busy with doing stuff around the house or maybe doing a craft while you listen, and this has really been the only way we've been able to keep up with readings for anything because I'm just so busy all the time. After each chapter, I have each of my kids take turns doing narrations of what they just heard so that they're able to kind of comprehend what's going on and I can understand what they're getting from the chapters. And that's it. It's really that simple. It teaches history lessons in a really fun and engaging way, and I know I don't have like the most experience out of anyone in English history, but I do feel like the lessons in this are really in-depth, but also appealing to kids. And honestly, I think I enjoy this book just as much as the kids do. Something else that's fun about Our Island Story is all the little rabbit holes it leads you down. Like, for example, there's a chapter that mentions King Arthur and Merlin, and that just made me want to read King Arthur stories. Then there are the history plays by Shakespeare, which although they're not entirely historically accurate by any means, they are loosely based on historical British events. So that's another thing that it reminds me of when we're reading through this book. There you have it. I just love Our Island Story. I love how easy it is. I love how engaging it is. I look forward to reading more books by H.E. Marshall, like Our Empire Story and This Country of Ours. And I just love how this book makes history interesting, not just for the kids, but for the adults. And I'm gonna make sure to link to the Living Book Press website below for all of the books that I have mentioned here. If you're interested in other old books like Our Island Story, I will link to my Ampleside Online review over here. That way you can discover even more books to read with your kids. See you next time. Happy homeschooling.